بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. Today's lecture is going to be about the similarities between Yusuf and his father Yaqub, and between those two and Imam Mahdi 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗕𝗦𝗖𝗥𝗓𝗔 Sharif. Yusuf in English is Joseph, and Yaqub is Jacob, as referred to in the Bible. So often Imam Mahdi is referred to as Yusuf al-Zahra. So the Imam Mahdi is referred to as the Yusuf of Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam. So throughout this lecture, we're going to see why he's referred to, Imam Mahdi is compared to Yusuf alayhi salam. One of the first things Yusuf had the capability of is interpreting dreams. This was one of his miracles that Allah and abilities that Allah gave him. So Yusuf dreamed about 11 stars and the sun and the moon all prostrating to him. So he told his father about it, who was also a prophet, Prophet Jacob. So he told him to keep this thing a secret, because he was worried about the jealousy of his other brothers. So after this event happened, Jacob gave Yusuf, Yaqub gave his son Yusuf a silver necklace. It was a vial a vial necklace that he gave to him, and he started spending more time with Yusuf and training him and showing him, teaching him things and all of this. So a lot of the other brothers, they started to take notice that he's spending more time with Yusuf than he is with us, and they started getting jealous of that. So they made a plot to get rid of Yusuf. Some said we should kill him, and then others said no, we shouldn't kill him, and we'll throw him in a well. So eventually they got the permission to take Yusuf with them. So Yusuf came, he was a small young boy then, and he came with them, and then his brothers threw him in a well. Even though Yusuf was protesting and tried to, persuade them not to do that, he threw them in the well and left him there. And even the narrations say that they pretty much stripped his clothes and then threw him in the bottom of the well. And he was down there in the darkness for several days. So we can look at this, that he had jealousy from his brothers. And with Imam Mahdi 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗙𝗧𝗏 Sharif, he had jealousy from among his family members too, and his birth was kept a secret. So not a lot of people knew about his birth, just some special privileged people saw him in his early years. So we notice that even his uncle, when it was time to lead the funeral prayer, and when Imam Hassan al-Askari died, he was 5 years old, and Imam Zaman was 5 years old. So his uncle tried to say that he was the 12th Imam, and he had jealousy, and he even tried to get the Imam captured before and things like that. So just how Yusuf had jealousy from his brothers, Imam Zaman had jealousy from his uncle and other people around him. Yusuf was only 7 years old when he was thrown in the well. After being thrown in the well, he was in the darkness of the well for 3 days. And then he kept calling on Allah to let him out of the well, and praying, and he was crying and he was praying. And then the angel came to him and gave him a special dua to say. And the dua was, "O Allah, I ask because of all praise is for you. There is no God but you. You are the compassionate, the merciful, the originator of the heavens and the earth, the possessor of might and honor. Shower your mercy upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, and make for me an escape from my current predicament. Provide me from whence I do not expect it." And this is in 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗦𝗍𝗏, volume 12, page 248, hadith number 13. So after this dua that he said, he was found by a caravan, and later on in time he also used this dua to be released from prison. So we can see that even a prophet of God he practiced tawassul, and he sought intercession by calling out to Allah by the names of Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, wa Hussein. So these names are blessed, and all of the prophets sought the answer to their needs through these names. We can see from the previous one of the previous lectures that Nabi Adam sought forgiveness by these names. Now we see that Yusuf sought his hajjah, or his need to get out of the well and out of prison, by calling on Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. A lot of ignorant people come and try to say that this practice is shirk, and they get really upset with us when they call, especially when we say Ya Ali or Ya Hussein. They get upset with us. But I don't know how they can get upset when even the prophets called out on Ahlul Bayt to get their needs met. And we can even go to the Quran when it says that in the Quran, in Surah 4, Ayat 64, Allah commanded the people to seek, when they sought forgiveness, to go through the Prophet. So he said, we sent no messenger except that he should be obeyed by Allah's permission. And if, when they had wronged themselves, they had only but come unto you and asked forgiveness of Allah and asked forgiveness of the messenger, they would have found Allah forgiving and merciful. So it's saying that when they wanted to seek forgiveness, they needed to approach Allah, and they also needed to approach the Prophet. They needed to seek forgiveness through the Prophet. This is called tawassul. When you ask Allah by the right of someone that he holds in a high position, you ask by their right. So Yusuf was in the well, and he asked, even though he is a prophet of God, he asked for the help through the names of Ahlul Bayt. Through their high status, he said, "Oh Allah, help me by these people, by the rights of these people, of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam." So there's nothing wrong when we ask Allah to help us by the right of Ahlul Bayt. As for us, we should always remember Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗕𝗦𝗧𝗏𝗧 Sharif, and especially in our times of need. And he's the Imam of our time, and we should call out to him during our difficulties to solve our needs, no matter how big or small they are. We should always call the Imam of our time, because this is the one who has the highest status with Allah, and he's the hujjah on the earth, Allah's proof on the earth. We receive all of our blessings due to the bounty of him being on the earth. We even get the rainfall or the air we breathe is due to the blessing of Imam Mahdi being on the earth. So we could call out on Imam Zaman. When you say the salam, we say when you give salam to someone, Quran says that it's wajib to answer the salam. The reply is wajib. So we could say, Assalamu alayka ya baqiyatullahi fi ardih. Peace be upon you, O remnant of Allah in the earth. Assalamu alayka ya sahib zaman. Peace be upon you, O master of the time. Assalamu alayka ya Mahdi adrikni. Peace be upon you, O Mahdi, help me. And you always can call out on the Imam of your time to help you. And remember, he's the same one that Nabi Yusuf called on. Nabi Yusuf called upon Allah by the names of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and Nabi Adam called upon Allah by the names of Ahlul Bayt. So even if prophets call on the names of Ahlul Bayt to get their problems and difficulties solved, this is a sunnah for us to do. So Yusuf was imprisoned by the Aziz, as a government official, due to his wife trying to seduce him. We see this in the story of Yusuf, that when Yusuf was released from the well, he was sold as a slave. So the Aziz bought him, and he grew up in the house of the Aziz. But his wife tried to seduce him. And of course, Yusuf turned away from this because he saw the ugliness of the sin. To the prophets and the Imams, sin is very ugly. They see the true nature of the sin. It's like looking at a rotting carcass, you know. No one would want to go eat from that carcass, some nasty, dirty thing. Imagine like the most filthiest thing you can think of. That's how sin looks to them. even though our eyes might be veiled and it seems alluring to us, and shaitan makes it seem fair seeming to us, the prophets and the imams, they see things as they are, and they know the end results of the sin, so they refrain from the sin. So anyway, she made up some lies against Yusuf, and Yusuf was in prison for some time. So when Yusuf was in prison, the inmates and the other prisoners, they respected Yusuf a lot due to his character and also his dream interpretation. They used to always come to Yusuf and ask him for his dream, the interpretation of the dreams. So he used to communicate with them and talk with them and teach them. And even Nabi Yusuf interpreted the king's dream in the prison, and this is how he was released. So Nabi Yusuf knew the understanding of the dreams, and we can see a relation between this with Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧. His aunt, Lady Hakima, which is Imam Hasan al-Askari's sister, she said that he knew the thoughts of her before she even said them. Lady Hakima said, by Allah, whenever I wanted to ask him something, he used to tell me about it before I could even ask. And it also happened many times that I faced a problem with the blessings of His Eminence, I got the solution to it at the same moment, even without me asking about it. This is in 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧, page 46. So we can see the relation between Imam Mahdi and Yusuf alayhi salam, that they knew the interpretations of what people were thinking, even without them understanding it themselves in relation to the dreams, and also without people even verbalizing what they thought. The Imam already knew. And this came from the knowledge that Allah gave them. It didn't come from themselves. But whenever they wanted to think about something, they wanted to know something, they knew it. And it was because Allah gave them that special knowledge that they required. So they asked Yusuf to, in the prison, the prisoners had really bad food. As everyone knows, prison food is horrible, even worse than hospital food. So the inmates complained a lot, and they said, we're really tired of eating this bread and water, this stale bread and water and salt, and this is all we have. So they kept coming to Yusuf and said, please, Yusuf, you're a righteous man, pray for us that we can have some sort of different food. So one of the miracles that Yusuf alayhi salam did was he prayed for them to have some food. And he told them to take the bowl and put in the bread, and then pour the water on top of the bread and put salt on top. And then Allah made this a nice stew for them to have. So then they were all happy and they praised Allah for this miracle that Nabi Yusuf did. In one of the reports we see in Hayatul Qulub, we read that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said that Yusuf went to prison at the age of 12. He was only 12 years old. And then he stayed there for 18 years. How about Imam Mahdi? When we think about Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗧, he's all alone in a prison of occultation, and he's not safe from the oppression and the harm from his enemies, and he's in a prison of solitude, waiting for his reappearance and his time to come back. If we only knew how much pain and Imam Mahdi had to go through in his solitude and loneliness, and how much patience he had to have to persevere and endure in the imprisonment of his occultation. Imam Bakr alayhi salam said in Kamaluddin by Sheikh Saduq, in the master of this affair there is resemblance to Yusuf, and it is that Allah will improve and reform his affairs overnight. Allah reformed the affairs of Yusuf overnight due to the king having the dream. And Allah will reform the affairs of Imam Mahdi in one night by gathering all his companions from faraway lands in one place. So both of them, their situation was very difficult, and then Allah caused it to come about and resolve in one night. Yusuf, when he got out of the prison, he interpreted the dream for the king, and the king brought him and released him from the prison. After he cleared his name, he released him from the prison. And Yusuf controlled the food supply for Egypt. After he was released from prison, and they had 7 years of famine, and he made sure that everyone had their fair share of the food and that no one was deprived their right of the food. And if it had been a corrupt system, you would have seen that the wealthy people would have eaten all the food and they would have held it for themselves and hoarded all of the food, and a lot of people would have went out without food and starved. But with Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, he made sure that everyone was taken care of, everyone had their share. And we'll see this in the time of Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗢𝗧𝗑, that he's coming to restore the justice and equity in the earth, and that during his time, no one will be in need. Everyone will have what they need, and even people will want to pay the zakah, and they won't even have anyone to give it to, because everyone will say, no, I'm okay, I have everything I need, I have money, go give it to someone else. But there will be no poverty, because all the wealth distribution will be in its proper place, and no one will be greedy and hoarding and taking all of the money, and while the other people starve. So this happened in the time of Yusuf, that he made sure that everyone was taken care of during the years of famine, and Imam Mahdi will also do the same. We also see that Yusuf had a ghaiba, or occultation, where he fully knew who everyone was, but his own brothers didn't even know who he was. They were looking right at him and they didn't know. But Yusuf knew who they were, and he was aware of the surroundings, and he knew exactly what was going on, even though they didn't know. And we see that with Imam Mahdi during our time. He's fully aware of his Shia and what's going on with us. As you can see from letters that were written to Sheikh Mufid, he says he knows our affairs and what goes on with us. And he's fully aware of us, and he functions in society and comes to different places, but we might not know who he is. We don't recognize him, but he's there. I have a lot of narrations that he's on in certain places, that he's in Hajj every year, and he's on the day of Ashura, he's in Karbala, and things like this. But we don't recognize him due to the occultation, but he recognizes us. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says the community resembling pigs opposes the belief in occultation of the Qa'im from the progeny of Muhammad. Indeed, the brothers of Yusuf were descendants of prophets. They interacted with Yusuf and closed a deal with him, but they did not recognize him until he introduced himself. Then how did these cursed people question the ability of Allah to conceal his proof from the people whenever he likes? Indeed, Yusuf was emperor of Egypt, and there was the distance of 18 days' travel from Egypt to the house of Jacob. If Allah desired, he could have made the whereabouts of Yusuf known to Jacob. By Allah, after receiving the good news, Jacob and his sons reached Egypt in just 9 days. Then how do these people say that Allah cannot repeat the process with his last proof? Yusuf used to move about in the markets. He ate among the people. He sat among the people, but they did not recognize him until the Almighty permitted, and until Yusuf said, "Do you not know how you treated Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant?" And this is in Hayatul Qulub, Volume 1, page 268. So they didn't even know who he was until he stated to them about how they mistreated him and mistreated his brother Benjamin. Now Allah told Yusuf while in the well that one day he would disclose these things to his brothers, while they wouldn't recognize him. And this is when this all came to fruition, when Yusuf was the emperor, and he told them exactly what they did, and they didn't even know, and they didn't recognize that it was him. So when Imam Mahdi reappears, what if we go to him and we say that we're his Shia, but he reveals to us all of the misdeeds that we were committing and says, how can you be a Shia of me when you behave like this, in this manner? It's something for us to ponder about, because the Imam knows what we do, and he knows our deeds, and he's well aware of our affairs, just like Yusuf was aware of his brother's affairs and what they did, and he told them and revealed to them what they did to him and what they did to Benjamin. And then they realized all the mistakes and that it was really Yusuf. So it could be the same situation. We could go to Imam Mahdi and say, "Oh, we're your Shia," and then he says, "No, really, you're my Shia, and you do this, you do X, Y, Z, and all of these other things." And we see that during the separation of Yusuf and his father Jacob, that Jacob cried for him a lot every day. He always cried for to be reunited with his son. And he cried to the point that his eyes went white and that he went blind. And we see that people criticize us for mourning Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where we cry and we mourn for him, and they say, "Oh, we shouldn't cry." Well, look at Yaqub, Jacob. He cried for his son, who didn't even die a tragic death like Imam Hussein, who he knew he was still alive, but yet he still wept for him, and to the point that he went blind. And Quran says in Surah 12, Ayat 84, "And he turned away from them and said, 'Alas, my grief for Yusuf,' and his eyes were whitened with the sorrow that he was suppressing." And so Yaqub cried due to grief and the separation of Yusuf into the point of blindness. But when we think about Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, do we cry for our separation from Imam Mahdi and our being alone without him, without our Imam to guide us? And how often do we pray for his reappearance and for his safety? Or do we just go on about our day and we don't even think about the Imam? We should cry, and we should, like like Yaqub. Yaqub cried for Yusuf, and he cried for him until he was reunited with him. And we should take a lesson from this example, that we should want our reappearance of our Imam so much that we should cry for the reappearance of our Imam. So the reason Yaqub he knew that Yusuf wasn't dead, because he asked Allah, when he was separated from him, when his sons threw Yusuf in the well, he asked Allah, he said, "Send me the angel of death." So Allah sent him the angel of death. And then when the angel appeared, he asked him, "Did you take the soul of Yusuf?" And the angel of death told him, no, that he did not take the soul of Yusuf. So in that case, Yaqub, or Jacob, knew that Yusuf was still alive. And this narration is in Hayatul Qulub, Volume 1, page 252. So Jacob bore all of this separation with patience, and he never gave up hope with reuniting with Yusuf. But do we give up hope on the reappearance of our Imam? Do we even think about it? Do we think it's going to happen in our lifetime? Do we even care if it happens or not? This is a point that we can take from this story from Jacob. He always knew that he would be reunited with Yusuf, and he always prayed for this, and he always cried for this. But do we pray for the reappearance of our Imam in the way that we should? Unfortunately, maybe we go one whole month, we don't do it, or we only do it on Friday, but we should do it every single day. Whenever we think about this Imam, we should think about him often and pray for his reappearance constantly. We should bear with all of this troubles that we go through with patience and with the hope that the Imam will appear soon. In the same way that Yusuf, he said that he used a beautiful patience, and he bore patiently and waited for him to be reunited with Yusuf. So we should bear patiently, and we should cry, and we should prepare, and we should hope for the reappearance of our Imam. So once Yusuf revealed his true position to his brothers, he gave them his tunic that his father had given to him, that Jacob gave to him. And this tunic belonged to their forefather Ibrahim. And he wore this tunic when Nimrud put him in the fire. And in the Quran it says he made the fire a peace for him, and that it was cool and that it wouldn't burn him. He had this tunic and he wrapped it around himself, and the fire didn't harm him. So Yusuf had this, and he gave it to his brothers, and he told his brothers to put it on his face when he saw him, and that it would restore his sight. So once his brothers started bringing this tunic back to their father, once it got close, Yaqub or Jacob said that he could smell the fragrance of Yusuf. And the angel came to him and asked him, do you want me to teach you a dua that will restore your sight and also will reunite you with your sons, Yusuf and Benjamin? Because Benjamin stayed with Yusuf, as we can tell from the story in the Quran. So obviously Jacob said, yes, he wanted to know the dua. And the dua that Gabriel taught him was, pray as Adam prayed when he wanted Allah to forgive him, and as Noah prayed when he wanted to bring his ark to rest on the mountain to save himself from the flood, and as Ibrahim prayed when he was thrown into the fire. Say, O Allah, we ask you through Muhammad, Ali, Fatima, Hassan, and Hussein to bring Yusuf and Benjamin back to me and to restore my vision. And then Jacob wiped his face with the tunic and regained his vision. This is in Bahr al-Anwar, volume 12, page 260, hadith 23. So we could see that Yaqub, when he wanted to gain his sight back, and when he wanted to be reunited with Yusuf, he prayed and he asked for this thing that he cried for many years. He cried to the point of blindness. But when he asked by the right of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, it was given to him. Subhanallah. The Tawassul and the importance of the names of Ahlul Bayt. We must call Allah, and we call Allah by the Sunnah of the Prophets. We ask them by the right of Muhammad, Fatima, Ali, Hassan, and Hussein. We ask by these names. Imam Hussein is Safinat al-Najah, the Ark of Salvation. So we call by these names and ask for our hajjah. And inshallah we'll be granted the things that we need through their lofty status that they hold with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ayat in the Quran, it says, then the bearer of good news came, and he cast a shirt over his face, and he forthwith regained clear sight. He said, did I not say to you, I know from Allah that which you do not know? It's Quran, Surah 12, ayat 96. So we can gain from these two things from this ayat, that even the earlier prophets from the time of Adam all the way, you see that Nuh and Ibrahim and Yusuf and Yaqub, they all sought help by the names of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So many Sunnis reject this as shirk. They say Tawassul is shirk. But we can clearly see that this is a practice done by the prophets and the messengers of Allah. And when Jacob wiped his face with the tunic of Yusuf, this is an act that we call tabarruk. Tabarruk is when you seek blessings through a means of something sacred or something belonging to someone like a prophet or imam or one of the ma'sumeen. For example, one of the flags from the shrine of Ahlul Bayt, like Imam Hussein, or the marble from the floor of the shrine. And people touch the shrine with their clothes. And we also have famous narrations about the turba of Imam Hussein that it holds shifa, or healing. So these things that are related and associated with prophets and imams and ma'sumeen, the infallibles, they hold sacred and special qualities and hold shifa for healing. So this shirt that Yusuf had, it was the shirt of a prophet, and then they wiped it on the face of Yaqub, and he regained his sight through those things. So in Mafatihul Janan, about the turba of Imam Hussein, just one thing to show that this turba, or this earth of Karbala, that where Imam Hussein was slaughtered, holds special position. In Mafatihul Janan by Sheikh al-Qumi, we find the following of the merits of turba. Imam Rida alayhi salam says, whoever uses the rosary or tasbih made of the clay of Imam Hussein alayhi salam's tomb, repeating the following statements with each bead, Almighty Allah shall record for him 6,000 excellent points, erase 6,000 evil doings of him, and raise him 6,000 ranks, and decide for him 6,000 times of intercession. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. These are the things that he say on the tasbih, and Allah will grant you all of these great status and great rewards for using the turba of Imam Hussein. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, whoever uses the rosary made of the clay of Imam Hussein's tomb, imploring for Allah's forgiveness one time only, shall be considered to have implored his forgiveness 70 times for just once. Whoever holds in his hands the rosary without even uttering any statement of glorification shall be regarded and considered to have uttered 7 statements of glorification for each bead. And there was a story also when we talk about tabarak, seeking blessings through things associated with prophets or imams. There's a story in the time of Imam Askari alayhi salam, the father of Imam Hujjah, Sahib al-Zaman, Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧, that there was a drought, a severe drought, and all of the Christians came, the Muslims came out first and they all prayed, and Imam Hassan al-Askari was under house arrest. And he didn't come out, but all of the other Muslims came out and they prayed, and no rain, nothing happened. They did it a few times, nothing happened. The Christians came out and they prayed for rain, and it rained. And all the people were saying, these Muslims prayed for rain, it didn't happen. The Christians prayed for rain, it happened. Christianity must be the right religion, and we're going to go all leave Islam and convert to Christianity. So they didn't know what to do. So the Christians came out and prayed for rain. And when the Christians prayed for rain, a lot of rain came. So Imam Hassan al-Askari came and he told them to come out tomorrow and pray for rain again. So when they came out and prayed for rain again, they raised their hand and prayed for rain. And Imam Hassan al-Askari told them to take what is in his hand. You see concealed under one of his fingers. It was something. So they took it from the Christian monk, and it turned out to be a bone. And the bone belonged to one of the earlier prophets. And they sought the blessings of rain through this bone of that prophet, and that's how it began to rain for them. So then the Imam told them, now pray for rain without that bone. And when they prayed for rain, the sun came out and all the clouds went away. Nothing happened. So then the Imam went and prayed without the bone, without anything, and raised his bare hands to the heavens and prayed for rain, and it rained. And he cleared the doubts from all of the people's minds, and then everyone knew that he was the true Imam. So they asked him, oh, where do you live? So he pointed at the Caliph, and the Caliph, he was embarrassed to say that he was imprisoned by him. So he pointed at the old house that his father, Imam Hadi alayhi salam, lived in, and said, oh, this is his house. And then he let Imam Askari go for about 1 year and released the tensions on him a little bit. And they say during this year that the Imam Zaman, Imam Mahdi, 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗣𝗢𝗥𝗧 was born during this time. So the family of Yusuf, they went to Egypt to be reunited with him. And all his parents embraced him, and he brought his parents up to the throne, to his mom and his dad. He brought them to the throne to honor them. And then all of his brothers prostrated before him, and due to gratitude. And Yaqub and Yusuf, they realized at this moment that this is the manifestation of the dream that he had before, when he was younger, before they threw him in the well. And he saw 11 stars prostrating to him, and the sun and the moon, and this stood for his parents and his brothers prostrating to him. And we see that Yusuf, the same as Yusuf with Nabi Adam alayhi salam, where they were prostrated to. But this wasn't done to worship them. It was out of respect for Adam and out of respect for Yusuf. And dealing with Adam, we spoke about it in a previous lecture, that this was Allah's command to them to prostrate to Adam. So this is definitely not an act of shirk to show respect to them in this way of prostration. Imam Hadi alayhi salam said, when they asked why the brothers of Yusuf prostrated to him when he was a prophet, He said, they did not prostrate for Yusuf in worship. Rather, they did so as a gesture of thankfulness to Allah and as a mark of respect for Yusuf. And the angels similarly prostrated to Adam by the command of Allah. This is in Hayatul Qulub, Volume 1, page 257. So Sunnis, they accuse us of Shia of committing shirk because we prostrate in the shrines of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, but this is far from the truth. We don't prostrate to those individuals in the graves. We don't prostrate to them in worship, but we prostrate out of respect for them and in submission to them as our guide appointed by Allah. That Allah gave us these people to follow, and they hold a high position with Allah, and we show respect to them as the divinely appointed imams that who we follow and who we emulate and who we respect, and we take all of our life's guidance through these individuals because they were the divine interpreters of revelation. So Yusuf died at the age of 120, and he lay on his deathbed. He assembled all of his followers and about 80 of his family members. He began praising Allah, and then he told them of the great hardships that would befall them. Their men would be murdered. The pregnant women's stomachs will be slit open. The newborn babies will be slaughtered. He said this will continue until Allah reveals the truth through a tall, dark-skinned man who will rise up from the descendants of Levi, the son of Jacob. He instructed them to hold fast to him, and he was describing Prophet Musa alayhi salam. And with this, Yusuf left the world. And we can see the same, we are facing the same similar trials as Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam during the time that we're living in. The followers of Ahlul Bayt are being slaughtered, they're being killed, their women are being raped, their homes are being destroyed, they're being made to seek refuge in other countries and migrate, and the masses, they're leaving their homelands due to persecution of these same types of individuals that are they're probably descendants of Bani Umayyah, the same ones that persecuted Ahlul Bayt then. We have these same type of people persecuting the Shia of Ahlul Bayt now, unfortunately, and especially in places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, these types of places. And there's a lot more places that I probably didn't mention, but wherever the Shia are, they always face difficulties. So just as the people of Yusuf were waiting for Nabi Musa to arrive, so they were looking for their help, the one who would come save them from their difficulties, we are also waiting for Imam Mahdi 𝗙𝗢𝗪𝗓𝗪 to appear, and we always pray for his reappearance and to come and help us and remove this horrible oppression that we've been facing for following the path of Allah and the path of Ahlul Bayt. And we've had to endure all of these hardships. All of the Shia have endured many hardships, and we're waiting for him to come restore the justice to the earth. And with that, we'd like to close with praying for the reappearance of our Imam with Dua Faraj. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan صلواتك عليه وعلى أبائه فهذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكناه أرضك طوعا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم.